Now, this is Seth Salem. You might not necessarily admire his fashion style, but you'd probably agree he has the right to dress as he chooses. Yet this week, 2 teenagers were sentenced to life in prison for beating to death 20-year-old goth Sophie Lancaster, simply because of the way she looked. Hayley Cutts reports.
Last summer, Sophie Lancaster and her boyfriend Robert Maltby were brutally attacked whilst walking through a park in the small Lancashire town of Bacup. Sophie was beaten so badly she slipped into a coma and never regained consciousness. Robert survived but has been left traumatised. The crime sent shockwaves throughout the country.
A goodbye kiss from the boyfriend she'd been trying to protect. Like those friends at her funeral, she dressed in the goth style, and it seems it cost her her life.
15-year-old Brendan Harris and 16-year-old Ryan Herbert were jailed for life for Sophie's murder this week. Her death, according to the judge, raises serious questions about the type of society we have in Britain. Here in Manchester, just round the corner from Sophie's hometown, there are many goths who are deeply shocked by her death. But how do they feel now, still hanging out in the city centre, dressed the way they do?
Some of the worst things that have happened has got to be I had a glass bottle thrown at me, which narrowly missed me. I've had people trying to trip me up, people walking into me, and some of the more nasty comments.
It makes me not want to be myself. It makes me want to hide and just blend in and be really normal, because I don't want to be abused.
Goths emerged out of the post-punk era, and they like the dark side of life. Some dress in black, some dye their hair, and they believe in the right to express their own individuality. A church in Manchester has opened its doors to create a safe place for the goth community to meet. Colin Amore, who became a goth 25 years ago, helps organise these gatherings.
You know, when you're a teenager, you want a group to belong to, don't you? And this one worked for me, even though it seems quite extreme. So, yes, we like vampires and ghosts and blood and fangs. And then we'll flounce into a corner and write a poem about how sad we are or something.
It's been almost 9 months since the murder of Sophie. But outside the haven of this church, nothing seems to have changed. John Owen was also the victim of an unprovoked attack.
I can remember them punching me, jumping on my head and laughing. I was absolutely terrified, and I've never, ever felt like that before. I've never had that kind of fear. It was like a piercing fear right through my whole body. I was just absolutely terrified.
John suffered a broken nose and a fractured wrist, but he refuses to give in to the intimidation.
Maybe I would consider changing my image, but then I thought to myself, well, no, because that's me, and if I change who I am, then they've won. I've done nothing wrong. You know, I'm a pretty strong character, and I think to myself, well, I've done absolutely nothing wrong. Why should I change myself for them? It's them who should change. It's them who need to look at themselves.
That view is echoed in the goth community, who have no thought of resorting to violence themselves over the attack on Sophie.
There's not packs of goths seeking revenge. We're all just feeling really sad and trying to do whatever we can do to support the family.
And Sophie Lancaster's mum, Sylvia, is here. She started a foundation in memory of her daughter to teach people respect and tolerance for others. Also here is Sophie's best friend, Suzanne, and Kate Conboy Greenwood from the SOPHIE Campaign, and Seth, who you saw a little bit earlier. Morning to you all. Thanks very much for joining us. Sylvia, just tell us a little bit about Sophie and why she dressed the way she did.
She dressed the way that she did because she was a creative young woman, and it reflected what she was like inside, basically, and she wanted to show people that she was an individual. And Sophie was, she enjoyed reading, she wrote poetry. When she was younger, she painted, and she was lovely. She was just kind and very caring.
And it seems quite extraordinary in this day and age that she was attacked, specifically because of the way she was dressed.
Yes. Yeah, you'd think that, you know, in 2008 we would have moved on from the intolerance that was shown that night, but obviously not.
Striking as well what the judge said. He said it raises serious questions about the sort of society which exists in this country. What do you think he meant by that?
Well, obviously he's talking about intolerance and hatred that certain sections of society have for others, and the total lack of respect and tolerance that was shown. And that is shown throughout society.
And I know the sort of irony of it all as well, that you are actually a youth worker, aren't you? Is it changing the way you think about your work as well?
Yes, obviously it has done. And you think about it deeply. And at one stage I had thought that I wouldn't go back to work, but I feel that I should do, because I can now use in a different way the things that I've learnt over the last 9 months.
Suzanne, you were Sophie's best friend. Does it worry you now at all to see exactly what's happened to Sophie, the way you're dressed now, that it could happen to you?
It does worry me, yeah. But I tend to go out with my boyfriend or in groups. I want to change my appearance just because of what happened. I would prefer to stand up for what Sophie were.
Why did you actually take on the image of a goth?
There wasn't really a reason. It just something me and Sophie really got into at a young age. My mum was into the goth scene, and so we got the music side from my mum, and we just basically decided to wear what we want.
Yeah. It's just an incredible story. It's such a powerful story. I mean, Seth, you choose to dress like that. It draws attention to yourself, and
not always good.
Yeah, I mean, not always good attention. Yeah, that's right. But don't you think that attention, that bad attention, if you just dressed more normally, you'd be fine?
I like many people in the goth community, I've been subject to an assault. And after that, a lot of people said, why don't, exactly the same thing, why don't you tone it down a bit? And my parents were very worried. But to the people that say that we should stop looking different, or we should try and fit in so we don't get attacked, it's like saying women shouldn't wear a short skirt in case they get raped, which is a horrific parallel to make. But I mean, looking at what's happened, it's true.
What do you think, in your eyes, what is it that frightens people, that disturbs people, to really stimulate them to say, they're too different for my liking, so I need to attack them?
Well, people fear the unknown. And people have this idea that goths or people that hang around and dress in the same way are all sort of, satanic baby eaters, or they go around marauding in as I say, in packs of 10 or 20. I mean, personally, I'm a Christian. I help out at the church that you've just seen, and it dismays me that people won't look outside what their narrow viewpoints are and just see that we're actually just people, and we're usually kind-hearted people.
Kate, I know you as well, you're part of the campaign in Sophie's name, and you've got a website as well. It's not just goths, is it, who are kind of targeted for the way they look? What are the stories you're being told?
No, that's right. I mean, the campaign's called Stamp Out Prejudice, Hatred and Intolerance Everywhere, because it's actually aimed at all subcultures, really. So we've had a lot of people come to the website. We've had 77,000 hits, and we have 6,700 members, friends on our site now. And a great majority of those report incidents that have happened, and it might be because they're a punk, it might be because they're into metal music. Some people are obviously goths, and within the goth community there's all sorts of different goths. You know, it's not just one sort of person. So we need to make sure that hatred and intolerance is stamped out amongst all subcultures. And some of the examples we've had are as young as a 12-year-old girl in Blackburn who was what you would call an emo girl in her black skinny jeans and hoodie, just went shopping for her mum's birthday present and was chased for 45 minutes and made to beg for forgiveness for being a goth. There's such misunderstanding.
So as you say, it's not just goths. Sylvia, do you think we are really at a state now where, you dress and you look different, and really you're putting yourself in danger?
Yeah, definitely.
So what can be done then?
Well, what we're hoping to do as part of the Sophie Lancaster Foundation, we're going to set up some training, etc. And we're hoping to go into youth clubs and schools and do group work and raise awareness of differences, and hopefully can bring an end to some tolerance, and hopefully go into younger school, you know, into primary schools as well, and start at a younger age.
OK, well, thank you all for joining us here on Sunday Life this morning. Thank you, and good luck with that.
Thank you.
Yeah, most definitely. Another powerful story. We'd be interested in your comments on this issue too, so you can phone us free from a landline on 0800 888 809. Lines will be open until midnight.